This podcast is the first in a series of explorations into the lives of ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives. As a director of a nonprofit organization that provides affordable housing to seniors and veterans, I realized how many stories are waiting to be told with the senior residents we house. This series, Pep Talk, will highlight the lives of some of those most interesting stories I learned about. The first person you'll meet is Ruth Murray. She goes by the name Ga.
My grandson was born in 1996, and his mother was trying to figure out what he was calling me when they realized it was Gaga. And so we were out on the Coast Guard military base, and everyone picked up Gaga. And then when he turned 13, he started calling me Ga.
3 or 4 years ago, she briefly told me her story. I took a van full of residents to the Capitol in Sacramento to lobby for senior issues. I recall really connecting with Ga. A few weeks later, she gave me a copy of her book, Barbershop Yearbook. At the time, I really didn't appreciate the significance of the book. I glanced through the pages and put it on my shelf to read at a later date. After hearing a podcast while on vacation in New Zealand, I remembered the story about Ga. When I returned, I found the book and read it cover to cover, and thus this podcast was born. Meet Ga. Ga is a 74-year-old woman living in a PEP housing apartment in Petaluma, California. She's a petite woman with white hair that's styled with a haircut that was quite perfect for her face. Not the sort of haircut I would expect a barber to have. Ga was born in a large family of 8. There were 7 girls and 1 boy. She grew up very poor in Baltimore, Maryland, in a coal mining town. Her father was a welder who worked on coal cars. He was also an alcoholic. Her mother, a gifted musician, was legally blind. She married her husband in 1966 and had 2 children, Joette Jade and Donald Thomas III. To avoid being drafted, her husband enlisted in the Army, which saved him from going to Vietnam. The Army brought them to Ethiopia for 2 years, where she saw extreme poverty. She compared just how much Americans have with the Ethiopians who have nothing. People would drop dead in the street and a truck would come by and take them away. Food was very scarce for the Ethiopian people. Her husband was stationed at the spy station in Ethiopia, located at 7,000 feet. She jokes that she'd bake a cake using the high-altitude recipe. When her family returned to the U.S., they struggled like any other young family. Eventually, she went to barber school. Because it's a man's profession, right?
Yes, positively a man's profession. I started barbering my husband's hair because we couldn't afford a haircut. Oh. And so I started barbering his hair, and he came home and he said, they're not going to give me a paycheck unless I get my haircut. Well, I was very pregnant, and I had sewing shears, and I started, and I did something to his hair, I don't know. And we were down in Georgia at the time, and he comes back the next day and says, they said I didn't get a haircut, we're not going to get a paycheck, cut more. So I gave my first crew cut with sewing shears. So it was fun. And then it got older, and kids were older, and it's time to get a profession for me, so I picked barbering. Tips.
When you became a barber, you came from a large family with 7 girls and 1 boy?
Yeah.
What'd your family think?
Well, I was already, had my children and out of the house and everything, and it was like survival. When we grew up, everything was survival.
Uh-huh.
So whatever you could find to do, make a living, that was quite all right.
They didn't say that's a man's job, or?
Oh, no. Didn't run into that, no.
Okay,
No,
great.
not with my father. He'd be drowned out with all those girls,
Yeah. What was the schooling like for a barber when you went to school?
Well, of course, I was the only female. No, I wasn't the only female. There was another lady there in Maryland. And an interesting thing was the military is given allotment to go to school after they get out of the military. And one day, there was no place to put my tools down. There was no station at all. It was filled. And these cute little guys all had these crisp little outfits on, and their tools were just so clean. And I found out later that the inspector's coming. And so they would let all those men come in and get approved that they were in barbering school. And as soon as the inspector left, they packed up their tools and they left. Then we had room. Honest to goodness, that kind of stuff happens. And I'm sure in other professions as well.
Yeah.
But, let's see. The people that come in for a haircut at barber school are not exactly a client that you want to do. They're usually off the street and a little bit smelly, and
They get a free haircut?
no,
No?
they don't get free ones. The instructor's supposed to come around and guide us as to how to do it, the haircut. And put in, I think it's, I don't know if, I can't remember the number, if it's 1,600 hours or 1,800 hours.
Wow.
You have to complete that. And then you go to, I was in LA, and I was going to have the exam. Well, you're supposed to bring somebody with you that needs a haircut and a shave. And you spend 8 hours that day. Well, when I got there, I didn't have anybody, but I thought I'd find somebody on the street. Oh my goodness, ran all over the place. Found somebody at the YMCA. He hadn't shaved yet. He said, you can cut my hair any way you want, if because I was paying him $20. So we run upstairs, I was going up the elevator. I says, remember, you can't help me at all. You have to just sit there and relax and smile like you're enjoying it. So
She said the profession fit her like a glove. She eventually left her husband and moved from Maryland to California and barbered in Ventura, Long Beach, Oxnard, San Diego, and Petaluma. Her shop in Ventura was called Ego.
I was on the beach in Ventura. I had a large clientele from the government there, the county. They all came down. It was fabulous. Because I was trying to think about my price. I think I charged $14 in the early 80s, something like that. And that was actually a lot to a lot of guys. And another thing, that you had to have an appointment. I ran appointment shops.
Okay.
And a lot of men don't want to appointment shop. And they said, I don't like to make an appointment. I said, well, how do you get in the dentist? Do you keep driving by the office to see if anybody's sitting there? You have to have appointments in life. So the neat thing is that if you build it, they will come. That's what happened. All the men that want appointments because they want to put their schedule around their haircuts also. So it worked out really well. My sister Shelby, behind her house across the alley in Boswell, Pennsylvania, in those little coal mining towns, is the undertaker. The undertaker that's done our whole family. And
Your
still,
sister is the undertaker?
I'm sorry?
Your sister is the undertaker?
No, my sister's the barber with the undertaker behind her
Oh,
house,
undertaker behind her house. Okay.
which has her barbershop in it. She did a lot of the people that have passed away. She did their hair. He would call her in when he was all ready, and my sister would go across the alley there and take her tools and fix people's hair in the casket. I didn't do that either.
Not very good tips.
No, probably not at all.
Go was a barber through and through. She cut men's hair, men's, boys, and occasionally a woman would want a haircut.
Yeah, I would get the women. It was awful. I would say to them, well, that I would do their husband's hair, their boyfriend's hair, their son's hair, and they liked the cut. So they would come and say, can you do my hair? And I said, yeah, I really can. I know I can, but you might look like a boy when I'm done, because I only do boys' haircuts. And so some would say, oh, that's okay, and they would leave. Some would say, okay. So.
40 years went by and it was time to retire, but she never really did give it up. To this day, she feels compelled to cut hair because she knows other seniors can't afford a $40 haircut. After officially retiring, she got an idea. Okay, so you buy a 1995 Dodge van.
This is outside.
Wait, you still the same van?
Yeah.
Okay.
259,000 miles.
Oh my gosh. And you leave on March 11th for your first day on the road. And tell us what you're going to do on this road trip.
Well, I was, like I said, I was over 40 years, and I just, we were dying,
Your profession
we're
was
gone.
dying.
Yeah, our
Okay.
profession is over. Like the florist is gone, the shoe shine guy is gone, the barbering was. It's interesting how we went out of business. Okay, I'll tell that because say like I'm going to use the number 50 years ago. Nobody was paying attention as the kids were graduating high school. They're researching. They just want to do hair, not go to regular college. They're researching the barber college, the barber profession, and the beauty profession. It was a no-brainer. They're 18 years old. They want to make money. Cosmetologist is making 4 times the money we are. We're back in the old era, still charging $5 a haircut when they're getting $15, $20 a haircut. So the kids kept signing up for cosmetology school instead of barber college. You get a few here and there. And so then all over the United States, they started closing the barber colleges. They had an option to join the beauty college or go out of business. And so they were just closing doors all over. And so by the time it's in the 90s, I knew that the profession's over. So for some reason, I got this brainstorm. I get brainstorms like this, that we should put faces with this old profession before it's totally gone, So I went after the old ones. I wanted them at least 30 years of barbering.
Many of the people you talked to had 45, 50, 55
70,
years.
76 was my highest.
76 years.
And he died before the book came out, but he was still barbering.
Really?
He was still barbering.
Wow.
And yeah.
So-
But their advice was, and I didn't know this until they told me, is that you can sleep in Walmart shopping centers without charge. Home Depot. There are probably others, but I know Home Depot. I did stay in Home Depot one time, and mostly Walmart. But if I needed a shower when you first go out, you need a shower right away. But after you're out there a while, you're okay, a couple days, Then you would get a campground. I would get a campground at that time. And then I was dyeing my hair at that time. It wasn't just white. And I would get a motel. Once a month, get a motel.
So you could
Mostly
dye your
we slept
hair?
at the campgrounds and, so I could dye my hair. And it was so nice to lay there and watch TV. That was nice.
Okay, so you traveled 21,000 miles through 48 states to create your book, The Barbershop Yearbook.
Yeah, it was 4 trips back and forth.
It was
Across
four-
America 4
wow.
times.
4 times.
My daughter, I was saying there that after about 3 months, my daughter said, "Oh, Mom, take a break from the road. Come home for a while." She lives over in Benicia. And I said, "I can't. I'm on a quest. I can't stop." I just couldn't stop.
Did
I
you
had to
have-
keep going and going.
Did you have a goal? Like you wanted to,
All 48 states.
you wanted all 48 states?
The comical thing was, is as I walked into a shop, an old white lady walking in to these shops, they thought inspector, because I had a suitcase with me, and so they're running and making sure their combs are in the sterilizers, and and then I would tell them my idea, and then they thought, she's a cosmetologist because she's a female, right?
Oh.
So then I'd have to start talking about the clippers, the 76, and our trimmers, and then they were like, "Oh, whoa!" And they just embraced me. I can't even tell you. The thing I love most about it, if you take that book and you just start going like this with the pages, and look at all those barbers, they're all standing posing for me. They didn't know me from Adam, and there they are, all posing for me. It was just
And sharing
it
some
was
personal
fabulous.
stuff with you.
Yes.
That's incredible.
But you know what? I think that's that barber connection. Barbers are very personal like that.
So you embarked on this trip, and you had no idea who you were going to meet along the way. What I found fascinating is that you found these barbers by looking for barber poles.
Yeah. They're in the way back era, there would be 2 and 3 on a block. Now it was real hard to find a barber pole. And I got tricked sometimes. I would see a barber pole and find a parking place and go in, and this cosmetologist had bought a shop from a barber.
And they just kept the pole.
In a lot of states, believe this or not, it's illegal for a cosmetologist to have a barber pole.
Really?
I think Virginia's one of them. Yeah, many states it's illegal. But there were barber poles put into the concrete of the building, and there was no way they could take them out. So they bought the pole with it, so that was cool. He couldn't say anything like that.
What's your most memorable client story, or you call them BS stories?
Yeah. I tell you how I got that BS Stories title is when I got back 2009, 2010, I was writing the book, and I was at the water down in Benicia. I would call that my office. I would open up the side door by the water and start writing. And I had to do a lot of calling because I verifying stories that I jotted. So that's why it took a year to do that.
Oh, okay.
But because I had over 200 barbers, in the book. There's, I think, 263, something like that.
And are you just using a pad of paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was all.
Yeah,
No computer.
Back in the day.
No
right.
computer. And I kept writing, instead of, I would write the barber's name and everything, and then I would go to write what he told me. And instead of writing barbershop, I just started writing BS, and I'd write their story. I can't even tell you how many months I was doing that when this light bulb went off. I said, oh my God, BS Stories. That's what we do all day, we BS. It's a great name.
With her pad of paper in hand and 48 states to explore, Gus started visiting random barbers to learn their stories, who they were, what they liked to do, and of course those wonderful BS stories. She wanted those stories memorialized for generations to come to enjoy a business that was becoming extinct. So I don't know if you remember all these stories, but I remember reading about a Tony Carnival and the topless barber sign.
Oh,
Do you remember that?
yeah, that sure do.
Can you tell us
that
that
was,
story?
That was the people that I told you, the very first, the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, yeah.
That was
them.
that was them. He said that, yeah, that was funny. C-E-E was his wife. So C wasn't coming to work that day, so he got this idea so he took butcher block paper and wrote topless barber today. And he pinned it up in the window, and then he closed all the blinds. And so he said, man, the guys were coming in. And he says, and I took my shirt off. And he said they walk in the door and bust out laughing. But he said the tips were great that day. He made good money.
Years. But you talked about one that had been barbering for 76 years.
He started in Italy. His father was a coal miner in Boswell, Pennsylvania. And he came over to join his family. And he just went to barber school and became a barber. And golly, that's a long time ago now, because that was 2009 when he was 76 years. He was there right there in the shop. And, well, that's a cute story also. Well, my sister, Shelby, who's also a barber, she's in my book.
Really?
Yes. Shelby, she just cut everybody's hair in the family. She just liked doing that. So when I became a barber, she said, whoa, I'm going to do that. So 2 years after I did it, she became a barber. But when she was little, she had pigtails, and she cut one of them off. So my mother took her to this barbershop, which turns out to be his barbershop. I'm trying to think of his first name, I can't.
The 76.
Policiccio is his last name, but I
Okay.
can't think of his first name. But anyway, they took her and they put up the little child stool for her, and she sat up there and he tried to straighten her hair out. Well, all these years have passed, 2 years have passed, and she became a barber. And at the end of her career, his barbershop was just 2 blocks from hers, so she went over to his shop to work a couple days a week.
Oh, really?
And
That's
she showed me
great.
the chair, the stool, that was the exact same stool when she was a little girl she sat up on, and he corrected her pigtails.
You met a barber in Benson, Arizona, that lost his right hand lassoing a calf, and it didn't impact his barbering career. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think
Remember
he had
him?
gone. His brother, I think, was a barber, and he told me to go to barber school. And I think he had just completed barber school, like maybe only 2 or 3 weeks. He was out of barber school when he was doing the rodeo thing, and the rope took his arm right off. And he didn't know what to do. now what does he do, you know? So they gave him that artificial thing with the hook, and he figured out how to hold the clipper in that hook. And he was 50-some years barbering with that hook.
That's incredible.
I know.
He wasn't.
There was
he
incredible
wasn't a
stories
cowboy
like that.
anymore, but he was.
Incredible stories.
That's wow.
They just didn't stop.
Okay, one of the stories I enjoyed was Janice Lookabill from Madison, Florida. She told the story of an elderly woman who fell asleep under the hairdryer and her false teeth dropped out.
Yeah, nobody wanted
She
to
also-
give them back to her.
She also told the story of a pair of underwear that fell out of a man's pants. They were
Yeah.
held on by static cling. And finally, she used WD-40 instead of hairspray by mistake.
Yeah,
Do
that
you
was
remember her?
Jan. Yeah, I remember Jan. She was cool. Yeah, she was a kind of, barbers are just have a great personality about them. You know, if they don't, they're not successful. You know, so they're full of stories like you see in there. But Oprah Winfrey's dad. I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I went into his shop, and at the end, I showed him the release form. He goes, "Oh, honey, I can't sign anything. I'm Oprah's father." I go, "Oh, that one's understandable. I could be in there tricking him into something,
Yeah, right.
you know?" So I put him in there. But yeah, I called my son and I said, "Hey, guess who I hugged today?" He goes, "Who, Mom?" I said, "Oprah Winfrey's dad." He goes, "Oh, God, Mom, how do you do these things?"
What was he like?
Oh, he was excellent. I think he was, I think his day was not going well. The phone kept ringing, and he would go in the back room. There was another man in the shop who's also on his page that I was talking with, but his eyes were watering, you know, like it was something very sad that he was dealing with. But he kept going with me. He'd go, "What else you need, honey? What else?" And he took a great picture. But I think he was having a sad day, and he was just super nice.
Oh, that's,
Super, super nice.
that's great.
That shop that he was in
Mhm.
went bankrupt.
Really?
Yeah, Oprah bought him another one.
Oh.
You know, I think she realized, because she kept trying to give him money to leave barbering, because it was embarrassing for her. You know, her father's hanging into this barber shop. But I think she finally came to the realization that that's what we do.
Right.
You know,
It's
there is,
passion.
that's, yeah.
Gus stops to reflect about her life today, living at Pep Housing in a vibrant senior community, and compares it to creating a barbershop.
When I moved here to Pep Housing, and I was down in the rec room doing crossword puzzles all the time, people keep coming by, you know, introducing themselves, and that's how I got to meet everybody. And I think months later I realized, oh my God, I just created a barbershop here. It's just that I'm not barbering, I'm doing a puzzle, but it was the same thing.
Yeah.
They were just flowing through and talking and sharing, and which is the BS part.
One of my favorite quotes that was, "I've learned that you don't quit work because you're old. You grow old because you quit." That was Russell Hyatt, and he had been barbering for 64 years.
Yeah.
He went on to share a story of the 35,000 pictures of visiting tourists and customers on his wall.
That barbershop was in Mayberry, and that's where I was doing the Andy Griffith.
Oh, yeah.
It was all about Andy Griffith. And you know, you remember the drunk that used to walk around town?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Clyde, I think.
Claude something. Anyway, they have a guy like that. He's walking around town, acting drunk, taking tips. you know?
Really?
Yeah, talking to people and
Did
they
you
give him
meet him?
tips. That's how he's making a living. Yeah. I went in the shop and Russell, he had a tie on and everything, right? And I thought, okay. The ceilings were probably 10 feet. And that was the old days when they took Polaroids.
Uh-huh.
It was over 10,000, he said,
Oh, my God.
at that point in 2009 when I was there. But he was telling that story. He said that this couple comes in and he asked them if they wanted on the famous wall, Mayberry Wall. And so they said, sure. Now, can you imagine if you were in an affair, would you say sure and take a picture? But anyway, what's your odds, you know? So he put it on there, and it was some little town in California, he said. So sometime later, these two women come in. And he said, I started talking with them, and lo and behold, I remembered the name of that little town. And he says, I went over and I said, oh, he says, you might know these people here. And the one woman, he said they keep looking and getting closer to the picture and looking, and they look at each other, and damn, he said, that's how she found out her husband was having an affair on my wall.
One of the things that astounded me was that in the 1800s, barbers not only cut hair but pulled teeth.
Yeah, they were dentists.
And there was at least with David Maloney of Mosham, Tennessee, said.
Oh yeah, he had
And was he the one that actually pulled? Did he pull somebody's teeth?
Yeah, I took a picture of it. He still has it. The guy came in and sat down and said he wanted, he's not cut his hair. And he says, I need a tooth pulled. He goes, what, tooth pulled? He said, yeah, the hair everywhere, he said. So he started putting back, and whenever I got that tool that I have a picture of there, and just pulled the tooth out. He said it was the last tooth he had in his mouth, so I pulled it out.
Oh my gosh.
Can you tell an off-color one?
Yes.
Well, you can. So I go into, it's Texas, I think, mother-daughter shop. I was excited over this, a mother-daughter barber shop, right? So the story goes, her husband was barbering, and the daughter grew up and got married and had babies, and she was looking for something. He says, go to barber school. So I went to barber school, she said, and we worked side by side. It was a husband-wife barber shop. And then he died. About the same time, her daughter's getting a divorce. So she tells her daughter, go to barber school and work with me. So she does. She goes to barber school and works with her. Well, they're getting so many clients. And what happens is when somebody walks in the door and they see all the seats filled, they turn around and go find another barber shop, you know. So the daughter decides we need an appointment shop so we can get all these people in, you know. So we need an appointment shop. So she said, my mother is just not on it. You know, she's not good at this, she said, but just one day, everybody's sitting there, and she said, my mom goes, Dick, and two men stand up.
I remember this story.
And she goes, are you a dick? She points at one man, and he goes, yeah. And she points at the other man. She says, and you're a dick too? And he goes, yeah. And she runs back to her appointment book, and she's got all excited. She doesn't know what to do. And so she runs over to her daughter, and she whispers, she says, what am I going to do? I got two dicks. So she said, I'm on the floor. She said, but I'm roaring. It was fun.
So I read a lot of stories of clients that came into shop wearing hats to cover their bald or balding heads and refused to remove their hats.
Oh, I
and
did
asked
have
the
a
barber
guy.
to cut around the
I
hat.
had a guy did that. I actually had a man do that.
You had one in your own shop.
Yes, I had to cut around his hair, his hat.
He wouldn't take his hat off.
No, he would not take his hat off. I had a man,
Do they get a discount if you're only doing...
yeah, I just charged like $10 or something.
Sometimes it's hard to stay focused on the stories of the barbers she met during her trip because so many stories about her barbering days are triggered while we are talking. She remembers a story about a huge comb-over and another about a man who was very short on words.
When I was working with Cindy, and I was just new to barbering, and I just came to California from Maryland, and she gives me one of the clients that comes in. You get the not so desirables when somebody owns a shop, you know, because you got to build clientele. So I put him in the shampoo bowl, and I'm looking up and I do the swish with the sprayer around his head, and I look back down and oh my God, there was no hair, and he had tons of hair, and I got this shock in myself. Here, it was a comb over. Oh my God, there's a super long comb over going on. You get to know them so well. You know who's doing what, who's divorcing, who's marrying, who's having babies, who's changing jobs. You go down to see the new cars. You know, you get invited to weddings, you get invited to funerals. You just okay. I have a funeral story.
Okay.
Okay, we're at Inverness. Okay, so I retired. I came up. I put my name all around town, to all the barbers if you need a couple days off. Well, I get the call from Point Reyes, from Earl. He's thinking about retirement, but he's going to take 2 months off and wanted to know if I would cover his shop for 2 months. Well, I was living out at the Coast Guard base. So I'm driving to Point Reyes every day. And he said, well, let me show you the home haircut you have to do at Henry. So we packed up and went up to Henry's, and he was showing me what you have to do. Put down the sheet, roll Henry over to the table, put your stuff up. Bring a towel, because Henry has a big beard and you got to clean it now and then. And so he's going over all this, right? So Henry says nothing. Well, his wife Ruth she's very friendly. So it came time, my turn to go by myself now. Earl's gone. So I'm doing what everything is said, and I get, just a couple minutes into the haircut, and he goes, "Are you done yet?" And I said, "Not yet, Henry." Another 5 minutes, "Are you done yet?" And he'd never say anything else except that. That's all he'd ever say. He didn't say hello. He never said goodbye when I left. He never said thank you. It's just, "Are you done yet?" Well, Henry died. Earl came back. I went on. I get a call from Earl. He says, "Hey, Henry died. We got invited to the funeral. You want to go?" I said, "Okay." So we're up in the hills in Inverness, They have their own tennis court now, and I think that was the area where we had the family gathering. The eulogy was just family. So Earl and we sat way up in the back, and we're sitting there listening to everybody, and they all the grandkids and children started out with, aside from his gruff exterior. And anyway, after all the speakers, and the one boy said, "Aren't anybody else?" Earl leaned over into my ear, and he goes, "Are you done yet?" Oh my God! It just took everything I had to try to restrain myself.
So do you remember Gertrude, the squirrel that visited the barber shop in Glasgow, Kentucky, who eventually got hit by a car?
Those are nice guys. Those are very nice guys.
And they had it stuffed after it got killed?
Yeah, he would come in and actually entertain the people. He would come every day. They would have the nuts for him and everything, and he'd be in the shop all day and sitting on people and climbing around and entertaining. And then one day they heard the tires screeching, and everybody was afraid to go look, but it was him. So they went out and took him down and had him stuffed, and I have a picture of it in the book. He's on the wall. So, incredible stuff.
Oh,
it's just incredible.
So some barbershops are known for having some illicit reading material in barbershops.
Yes.
Is that constant throughout the community?
No, it's whatever the barber wants.
Yeah.
Back 40 years ago, you had to be extremely careful as a female barber, especially scalp massaging. I don't know a guy that doesn't try to hit on you. I just don't know. And once you've established that you're there for their hair and only their hair, because Cindy LaBelle, another lesson, she said, "You want to lose a client? Date them." So once you establish that, oh my God, the stories you would hear. I mean, they even brought girlfriends that they're having affairs with. And it was so, I told Neil, "This is too difficult for me. I know your wife. I know your kids. Don't bring her here, One story in the book, this lady drops her 10-year-old off and said she'd be back, and it's two brothers and another guy. It was three barbers and two brothers. And she came back, his hair was cut, he's over in the corner, and he's got the porn book out, and he's looking at Playboy.
Reading the articles.
Yeah, reading the articles at 10. And his mother came in. Oh my God, did she explode? She exploded on those barbers. Of course, she never brought her son back there.
I've seen beer being served, alcohol beverages being served in
Cindy did.
barbershops.
Cindy did. Cindy had a wine, what do they call the large one?
Oh, kegerators?
Like a gallon, like Gallo or something?
Chips. They would go back in the room and they'd get their wine and come back and sit down with their wine, and she'd go, "Excuse me, over here, over here." She pointed
for the tip?
For a tip. And they'd have to get their wallet out and put some money in.
Some of the barbershops in the South, the black barbershops, have been known to be a little bit colorful and entertaining with how they interact with their clients. Did you witness that at all?
I'm thinking about where was the crossing of the Clintons and them? They crossed the bridge. What was that called? Oh, it was Black Movement. But anyway, I was there, and when you have a white woman walking into a barber shop, it's like, oh, it's definitely as an inspector, right, coming to explain what you're doing and that. But it's a cute guy, very fun and everything. He was the only one in the whole my whole trip that when I went to leave, he patted my ass.
Oh, really?
And I turned around, looked at him, and go, hey. He goes, oh. But other than that, it was only if my skin was dark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I probably wouldn't have had the South in my book. But when the white goes in a black shop, totally welcome.
Hmm?
I found a big difference.
Really?
Yeah. There was only one black shop, and it was Senior. I don't know, he did look busy, but he could have, I had a feeling when I left he was avoiding me because I was white. And I could be totally wrong on that because there was no word said. But that was the only place I felt it. In my book there, I had to take a picture of him, put it in the book. This man was unbelievably much younger looking than he was. He was a handsome man. And he had a sign. That's one of those shops I wouldn't have got in if my skin was dark. But he had a sign on the wall that said, some people are walking around because it's illegal to kill them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know what that meant. Here's the funny part. Just right underneath it, he had another sign that said, no cursing. I had to have a picture of that. So I put that in the book. When I knew I was going to have to go to the campground, there was a sign on a pole outside.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't say how far it was. I mean, if it's 5 miles going in, I don't want to go, you know. But it was just outside. So I'm buying my eggs and stuff for breakfast, which I cook on my propane stove in the morning. So there's a black woman checking me out. And so I asked her if she could please tell me how far the campground is. And she explained nicely to me everything where this campground was. And I'm nodding my head and nodding my head. I did not know a word she said. Not one word.
Because
And
you
I
could
thought,
understand her.
well, the southern accent.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wow, this is way deeper than I thought. Because my father's a West Virginian, and we used to go down into the South, you know. So I'm saying it's kind of a worn out, it's kind of a going out of business type shopping center. It's kind of desolate. And I got, over there was this shoe store, and this man and woman was coming out of the shoe store, and they were white. And I thought, well, I'll try that color, see if I understand what they're saying. So I walked over there, and I asked him about the campground. And so he says, well, I'm not from these parts, but I believe I can tell you about that. And I said, well, normally I sleep at a Walmart. And but I thought, well, I'll go to this campground. He says, well, we're going to Walmart. You want to go to Walmart? You just follow us. She wants a pair of shoes. I don't know why she wants this pair of shoes. She don't need them. Yes, I do. And so I said, you know what size is your shoe? And she said, 7.5. I said, I don't know why, but in my car, I have a pair of shoes that I never wore, and they're 7.5. So we go to my car, and for barbering, I bought shoes without shoelaces because it's, the hair drops. So I bought them in all colors. And so I bought this blue pair, but I never wore them. I didn't like the blue ones, but for some reason they're in my van. And so she liked them. And I said, well, you can have them. She says, you mean you're going to give me your shoes? And I said, yeah, I don't wear them. I said, you can have them. And I started telling them about I'm having transmission problems. So she says, my daddy can help you. And so her daddy was a mechanic. And I thought, well, I pictured a guy in the backyard, working on cars. And I thought, well, why not, So I'm going that way, going to the other state. And so I find him. And this town is like closing down, just like that shopping center back there. And oh my God, it's Walmart. The Walmarts are closing up.
Really?
They're closing up at all these
So they're closing the whole town down.
Yeah,
Or
the
shutting
whole town.
down.
Yeah, they can't compete.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he didn't have everything to work on my car, but he put in a solution that would hold me, he said. And it did help me till I got into Georgia. But later in years, when I called back to just check on him, let me back up to the store. We got to Walmart, and she had the shoes on when she got out of the car. How cute was that? And he does this she went on into, she's talking to her daddy on the phone for me, and he says, you know, she ain't never gonna forget that you gave her your shoes. Well, I said, well, that was so cool, and I'm like, trying to, hold it together, but when I called back, he had died, and her father had died, the guy that worked on my car,
Oh, really?
and her husband. They were both dead. Cancer.
Wow.
Wow. But anyway, did find Walmart, and I slept in Walmart again. So Walmart saved me a lot of money. Those large ones also had McDonald's in. So you had McDonald's when you woke up in the morning. Walmart, they opened super early, and you had your coffee right there. So it worked very well.
Great.
It worked very well. Oh, God, there's so many stories. Well, I thought that my book I wanted it published because probably half of those barbers have passed away since then.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the clever part is why the book would do so excellent is because there's 48 states is covered in there. There's a lady right over here, Casa Grande with me. She was visiting, and she was looking in my book, and she came across the barber. She said, "Oh, let me look at my town." And she looked back, and she started screaming. It was her husband's barber is in there.
Oh, no.
And so I thought, well, this is probably going to happen a lot in
Yeah.
different places, I came down the back road, Spring Hill Road, back into Western, and the first barbershop I stopped at there at the corner of Western and Weber was Kit. And so I went in and I said, I'm here, and I explained it to him, and I need a shop that I can open from 6 to 9 at night. And I had all these papers from the guys, they wrote me great papers, and I was going to present them to them, my honesty and all, and didn't even. He walked in the back room, came back out, and handed me a key. And he goes, there. And I go, okay. Years later, I asked him, I said, why would you do that? You didn't know me. He said, well, just look at you. Are you going to rob from me? I don't think so. I was coming down Spring Hill Road, and there's this Mercedes in front of me, and it had, I'm Gaga on the license plate. I went, oh, there's another Gaga. Oh my God. So she turned off on Cleveland there, and I was going to follow her, and I thought, oh no, that was too weird. So I went on to work. Well, I think a year later, this lady comes in my shop. She says, what are you doing in here at night? I'm passing here. And I said, I'm barbering, and I explained to her I was watching my son. Anyway, we're talking about their grandkids, and she said about her grandkids named her Gaga. And I said, my grandson named me Gaga. I said, and guess what? There's another Gaga. I said, it's a white car. She goes, it's outside. That's me, she said.
Oh, no. God knows so many people and is so approachable. She was correct when she said her profession fit her like a glove. I wondered how many people could do the work she did for so many years. You were there to cut hair, but also to listen to what each and every person has to say and be interested.
Well, I don't really meet a stranger, though. You gotta know that. Like, I'm in a grocery line, and I say to this guy, I hand him my card, and I said, I can do a much better job in your hair than what you're doing. And of course, he's too curious, right? He has to come.
Yeah.
And he was a photographer, it turns out, Chris Zorni, and he stayed the whole time. So he'd tell everybody that. She had the nerve to tell me my hair didn't look good. But it's just, you do. I don't know. It like I said, it fit me like a glove. The profession did. Yeah, Pete. Every week, Pete. Every Friday afternoon, Pete came for his haircut. Well, my haircuts were $16 then, and he'd give me $16. Or he'd give me a 20. I'd hand him 4, and he'd hand me 2. Well, his wife came. I'm doing Pete's hair forever, and his wife comes in one time, and she's talking with me when he did that, and she goes, "What are you doing?" He says, "What?" He says, "I was tipping her." She says, "You give her that 20 right now. Don't ever take money back." And so from then on, every Friday, he had to give me $20. So I was pretty expensive barber for a month for him. But Charlie came every other Wednesday at 10 o'clock for 18 years.
Wow.
Every other Wednesday at 10 o'clock. That was incredible. So there's so many incredible people, They're just, I could just go on and on and on and on.
I think it'd be so interesting to have a career like yours and meet so many different people and be told so many different secrets. You know, that,
Oh my
that
goodness.
they might not tell their,
Yeah.
you know, their best friend, but they tell you.
The best thing to do is those kind of secrets you let.
Yeah, that's right. You,
Yeah,
you
that's,
forget
that's
them.
how it stays a secret.
That's right.
But I think the 80s, my Vietnam vets were, you know, I was always a one-chair shop, so they could share everything, and I'd just sob with them. They'd sob, and
Oh,
I'd sob.
gosh.
We'd sob. Yeah, their stories that just make you sob.
And they'd share with you.
This
those.
one man tried so hard to get off the street, you know, because he had a son. He would try and try, and they're haunted, you know. He was on a helicopter going down to pick up people. You have a man on your back here, and you have a machine gun, and you just keep killing and killing and killing. He said, and you feel that man, you want that man, you know, as soon as you don't feel that back on that man, you're dead. And it just, how do you live with that, you know? They came home like that, you know, and they're still out
Yeah.
there.
Oh, I know.
The pain, too much pain,
Yeah.
you know. I want to slap anybody who talks about the homeless.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so much depth in people.
Ga's adventures took her around the country 4 times, meeting well over 200 barbers. She wanted their stories preserved and celebrated, so she wrote her book, published it, and made back the money she spent publishing the book. While she hoped it would have gotten more traction, she did get to meet so many wonderful people that welcomed her to their shop, once they learned she wasn't an inspector. She managed to travel 21,000 miles with only 2 tickets, a parking ticket in the pouring rain and a rolling stop. She was from California. She was so grateful for the friendships she gained along the way. As Ga was leaving the building after the interview was over, she mentioned she had just had a stroke 2 months earlier. I was so surprised to learn this because I would have never known. She was articulate and her memory was exceptional. I'm glad we were able to tell her story and the stories of so many barbers in this podcast. Barbering is becoming extinct, but their stories will live on forever. This podcast was written and produced by Mary Stomp. Contributors were Dominic Roybal. Thank you, Ruth Ga Murphy, for sharing your story. We look forward to bringing you more stories in our series, Pep Talks.